Season 10 of Formula E kicked off this past weekend in Mexico City at longtime venue the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, and we've got your rundown of all the action from the first race of the season right here. But stick around till the end for a quick little bonus, where we list off all the penalties racked up by our drivers over the course of the weekend. Some are sure to turn heads. But back to the race. After a tight qualifying session where most of the grid was within 0.3 of a second during the group stage, the starting grid was set with Porsche's Pascal Wehrlein on pole, alongside Envision's Sebastian Buemi in second. There was drama before the lights even went out as Sergio Set Camara's car broke down on the way to the grid, which is sure to be a good omen for ERT's season. This left him and his car out of the race, as well as the official pre-race grid photo. Also absent from the photo, Dan Ticktum, which resulted in a €1,000 fine. Was this an honest mistake or an attempt to kickstart another season of his bad boy reputation? Now, we witnessed a fairly clean start to the race through the opening corners as Wehrlein held on to the lead and defending champion Jake Dennis made up several positions after an uncharacteristically poor qualifying forced him to start 14th. Andretti claims they had made some last-minute changes to their cars just before qualifying, which obviously didn't work out too well, so they reverted to their previous setup for the actual race. But the damage was already done. Another thing everyone noticed right away was Robin Freins losing 7 positions right from the start after an unknown technical issue caused his car to lose all power and reboot itself. Now, midway through the first lap, Lucas de Grassi went off at T12, ending up in the barriers. He was able to continue, but was forced to retire with brake problems a few laps later. After the opening salvos, we were treated to our first collision of the season on lap 3 as Da Costa went for an ambitious overtake on Muller at turn 3. Da Costa made contact with the Swiss driver as he attempted to cut across the apex of the corner and sent him into a spin and the wall. Luckily for Muller, he was able to continue, but for Da Costa, it was not the start of the season he would have been hoping for, as he retired with front suspension damage and was later given a 3-place grid penalty for round 1 of the Derrida Prix. Meanwhile, race leader Wehrlein started the attack mode sequences and traded the lead with Buemi behind before retaking it. As is typical, drivers were conserving energy in the opening laps to try and eke out any advantage they could find later in the race. On lap 5, it was announced that Wehrlein was under investigation for a throttle map infringement. Unfortunately, with the stewards having a siesta during the race, the investigation didn't conclude until after the race and no penalty was given. On lap 9, Robin Freins crashed his Envision at the exit of the stadium section. It was quite a peculiar crash, as it initially seemed that contact with the Mahindra Mortara sent him into a spin, but the replay made it look like he just lost control on his own and oversteered into the barrier. All in all, a very poor return to Envision for Freins. After several laps where little of note happened, Dan Ticktum started falling down the order in his ERT. Starting on lap 21, he was overtaken by De Vries, Daruvala and Muller in the span of a lap and a half. His day wouldn't get any better from there, as he finished 45 seconds behind the next slowest car. This leads us to wonder if he was having mechanical issues or possibly just conserving energy in case of another safety car. At the front of the field, the cars were continuing to run in formation, with very few meaningful battles on track. The leader, Wehrlein, had pulled a 2-second gap to Buemi in second, showing the continued dominance of the Porsche powertrain around the Mexico City track. With less than 10 laps to go, Mitch Evans in P5 was starting to run into energy management issues and was falling back from the lead pack and was under pressure from DS Penske's Jean-Eric Vergne. However, the lack of hard braking zones meant that despite having 1.5% more energy than Evans, Vergne was unable to go for a move. As we got to the closing stages of the race, Sam Bird suddenly lost 3 positions at once. However, there was no live broadcast or replay of the incident, so we have no idea what happened. It could have been a UFO, a wild boar, or simply a mistake. With 2 laps added because of the laps under full course yellow and the safety car, we were given a 37-lap race total. With 3 laps to go, the entire field was within 2% of each other on energy, but even if it would have made a difference, overtaking was so difficult that it became a moot point. Pascal Wehrlein took the checkered flag to claim 28 points and his 5th career win after controlling the race from pole. Sebastian Buemi and Nick Cassidy rounded out the podium with strong starts to the season and sit 2nd and 3rd with 18 and 16 points respectively. Cassidy, who took the fastest lap and the bonus point that came with it, must be especially happy to have had such a successful first race with his new team Jaguar. Gunter continued his strong form from the second half of Season 9, finishing in 4th and has 12 points. Mitch Evans in the second Jaguar is 5th with 10 points and should be a bit disappointed with his performance, being overshadowed by his new teammate and for falling off the pace of the leaders towards the end of the race. DS Penske had a solid day, with Verne finishing 6th and gaining 8 points. His teammate Van Dorn finished 8th and picked up 4 solid points. Splitting the DS Penske's was Jake Hughes, who is proving himself to be something of a Mexico specialist, with a solid 7th place and 6 points, showing up his vastly more experienced teammate in Sam Bird. Finishing 9th and 10th were the two Andrettis, with Jake Dennis leading home Norman Nato. An uncharacteristically slow qualifying set Dennis back, and the lack of overtaking meant that he had an impossible task in charging back through the field. They sit on 2 and 1 points each. Of course, that means that everyone else is effectively level on 0 points. De Grassi, Da Costa and Freins failed to reach the checkered flag, with Set Camera not even starting the race. While it may have been a race to forget, Mexico City last year was also a dud and the rest of the season was fantastic. So we'll be hoping that trend continues when Formula E returns in Diriyah. Now, we'll leave you with an interesting list of all the penalties recorded this weekend for our drivers. Sergio Set Camera, €1,800 for speeding in the pit lane, plus 1 point added onto his racing license. Norman Nato, €1,000 for using too much power in the first free practice. He also used too much power in qualifying, dropping him from 9th to 13th on the grid. Stoffel Van Dorn, Nick Cassidy and Mitch Evans, 1 grid position back for not driving into their garage as directed in free practice. Antonio Felix da Costa, €2,500 fine for a tyre pressure infringement. Sound familiar? He was also slapped with a 3-position drop for the next race for the previously mentioned collision with Nico Muller. Robin Freins, €1,000 for having a mechanic work on his car past ready-to-move status. Lucas de Grassi had a lap time cancelled in qualifying for violating track limits. And Dan Ticktum, as mentioned, failed to show up to the pre-race official grid photo, resulting in a €1,000 fine. And that is all for our 2024 Mexico City E-Prix review. If you liked the video, be sure to subscribe to the channel and leave us a like.